Welcome back, everybody, to the 1987 Supermod and our AWA save. I'm Brad Drake. This is my AWA save. We are in week 2, Sunday of August 1987. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We have already selected our venue for this evening. We're going with University Stadium in Winnipeg, which has been freshly added into our game. I created the venue. We have a whole other video discussing that process. So we are going to click over and see what our backstage incidents are. And Sabrina, one of our job girls, she's in a good mood and telling everybody funny road stories. Thank you, Sabrina, for your participation. You're still not going to wrestle on this show. Our absent workers. Looks like mostly all of, well, it is, all of our enhancement talents are working for the WWF tonight. Mr. Saito is still out on injury. So let's take a look at our card. And obviously, this is a different card than the last time we were in Winnipeg. And this one has Debbie Combs facing off with Medusa Micelli. The Nasty Boys are going to again face the Top Guns. Eddie Guerrero is going to mix it up with Mike Graham. Russ Francis is going to climb into the squared circle with Big Bobby Duncan. Kevin Kelly and DJ Peterson are going to lock horns once again. The Terrorist, Jack Victory, is going to mix it up with Jerry Blackwell. Dick Slater is going to throw hands with Jimmy Snuka. And the Big Tilt, our big main event, the Midnight Rockers are facing the new World Tag Team Champions, the Midnight Express, for the AWA World Tag Team title. As we know, in Salt Lake City, the Midnight Express defeated the Midnight Rockers for the World Tag Team title. So here we are. Let's go ahead and get rolling with our card. So we're going to go ahead and put in our first match, which we know is Debbie Combs versus Medusa Micelli. Now, Combs has been taking all of these matches lately, so we are going to try to give Medusa Micelli the win. We'll see if Debbie Combs complains. Combs has got that rib injury, as we know. So Micelli's going to take the win. She's going to, of course, cheat. She's the heel. She has to cheat. And Combs is perfectly cool with it. So it's all right with her. It's all right with me. Nasty Boys versus the Top Guns. These two teams have not been putting up good numbers anywhere, but this is good experience and exposure for them and will only help us in the long run as we get our young teams experience. As we know, Knobs and Sags would go on to have major success in their careers. They were an excellent tag team. They really worked well together, and they had a unique look and a unique style. And as we know, they were world-class party animals and troublemakers. As a matter of fact, they almost killed Ken Shamrock in a fight. Feel free to check out YouTube for Ken Shamrock shoot interviews where he talks about that incident. And then also feel free to check out Brian Knobs' shoot interviews where he talks about that incident. You'll find that the two sides of the story are not too far different. It's really scary. The Nasty Boys almost killed Ken Shamrock. Our next bout is Eddie Guerrero versus Mike Graham. We've talked about both these workers before. Obviously, we all know who Eddie Guerrero is and who he would go on to be. You know, a lot of people don't realize that Eddie Guerrero was a second-generation wrestler. His father was originally from Mexico, Gory Guerrero, and then settled in El Paso, or El Paso, however you want to pronounce it. And he traveled between the United States and Mexico working as a professional wrestler. And then his 4 sons ended up becoming professional wrestlers also. I hesitated there because I couldn't remember if there were more brothers, but the 4 I'm familiar with are Chavo, Hector, and Mondo. and all of the brothers were quite a bit older than Eddie, and that's why Eddie Guerrero became so close with Chavo Guerrero Jr., who was similar to him in age. All of the Guerrero brothers could really go. They were all very talented wrestlers, and when they would team and tag together, it was like watching a well-oiled machine. If you get the chance, check out some of these AWA cards in the mid 80s where they would bring in the Guerrero brothers. And then also just do a search for Chavo and Hector, Hector and Mondo, and watch these guys work together in the ring and watch how talented they were. They were really something else. And it was, as a wrestling fan, watching them in the ring is the equivalent of like watching, for example, Larry Bird or a Magic Johnson, who were just so natural and so talented in their trade, their sport. The Guerrero brothers were no different. In our case here in 1987, we have a 19-year-old Eddie Guerrero who's just starting to cut his teeth. As a matter of fact, I wasn't going to bring Eddie Guerrero in, but we lost Mondo. Mondo signed with a Mexican promotion, so we lost him, so I brought in Eddie so I could continue to have three Guerreros. We all know about Mike Graham. Mike Graham was another second generation wrestler, just like Greg Gagne, who a lot of people bag on and say that he only got the success that he did because of his last name and who his family was. If you watch shoot interviews where people talk about Mike Graham, and I'm talking about people like Kevin Sullivan and uh, Oliver Humperdinck, Steve Kern, people like that that spent a long time in Florida, they will all tell you that Mike Graham was the real deal when it came to the ring, came to being in the ring. Mike Graham was an outstanding amateur wrestler. He was extremely strong for his size, and he took to wrestling, pro wrestling, just like a fish in water. And apparently, he was a nasty, hard, tough guy, just like his father, Eddie Graham, was. And he was a true talent in the ring. He did lack charisma and he did lack size. Mike Graham was only around 5'7", maybe 5'8". So he was what we would consider a junior heavyweight or a light heavyweight wrestler. He won the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title a couple times. He was just a technically sound wrestler, but he lacked size and he lacked that charismatic appeal that his own father had. Mike Graham, after Championship Wrestling from Florida closed, ended up doing a lot of work in other promotions as road agents, as writers. He and Greg Gagne were employed in WCW for a few years, writing television. Each have their own story about how things went south and things went sour there. And that's pretty much the story with Mike Graham, as he was a no-nonsense wrestler. He was very talented in the ring. He, of course, also had a scummy promoter side to him, where there are stories out there of him cheating people out of money, attempting to cheat people out of money, taking advantage of people, and flat out lying about situations. According to Mike Graham, he's the one responsible for bringing Hulk Hogan into WCW. He's also responsible for the turnaround with the NWO on television and all that kind of stuff. So you have to take what Mike Graham said with a grain of salt, but it can't be denied that he was a talent in the ring, and he did come in and out of the AWA over the years. So it's realistic that he's here now in my Save Wrestling, and frankly, in 1987, I'm glad to have him in the AWA to be working with a guy like Eddie Guerrero to get experience. So let's continue on here. I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. Our next match here is Russ Francis versus Bobby Duncan, and you already know that Bobby Duncan is going over Russ Francis. Again, we've brought Bobby Duncan back into the territory recently. He needs to rack up wins to look as intimidating as possible. So we are going to feature him in every one of our towns, going over Russ Francis or other talent, and he is also going to be featured dominantly on television to prepare him for the big money matches. Bobby Duncan was a very good wrestler, and even though he's in his 40s at this point, he can still go, and he's another guy that I'm very glad to have brought back to the AWA, and he totally fits in with the narrative and where we're going as a promotion. Next, we have Kevin Kelly squaring off against DJ Peterson again. This match is also going to go 14 minutes. We've talked briefly about Kevin Kelly, and we can talk about him again here a little bit. I always liked Kevin Kelly. He was a big, muscular dude. He wrestled a good, solid brawler style. I thought he was very good in the ring. He was a little bit, he didn't have the greatest of charisma, but he did have appeal to him, and he looked like $1 million. He would eventually make his way, to other territories and around the country, and eventually end up in the WWF as Nails. I think it was Nails. He worked like this convict gimmick where he wore like an orange jumpsuit. And apparently he went nuts and tried to kill Vince McMahon by strangling him over a money dispute. So that was the end of him in the WWF. And I can't remember if he resurfaced again in WCW, but he never achieved that headline status or anything like that. But regardless, here in 1987, he's a good, solid wrestler. He's good for the AWA, and I think so far he's got a very nice feud going here with DJ Peterson, and them battling town to town here is good stuff. Next, we have the Terrorists versus Jerry Blackwell. As we've talked about before, Jerry Blackwell cannot go longer than 15 minutes. He just doesn't have the stamina for it. And in all fairness, Jerry Blackwell is not the youngest of men here. He's in his late 30s. He's been wrestling for 20 years here already. And some of you may not know, but in 1988, Jerry Blackwell, with the Gagne's blessing and actually a little working agreement, would open up Southern Championship Wrestling out of his native Georgia, and they had a pretty good little thing going there. He had a nice little territory going. He used a lot of AWA talent, and it was an entertaining little territory. It didn't last too long. I think he sold it in 1989 for somebody else, to somebody else, and I think they folded up in 1991. But that's something that Jerry Blackwell is known for. He tried his hands at promoting and, was kind of successful on an independent level. In 1988, you will see in the Supermod that Southern Championship Wrestling will open up. Now it's up to you who's running the save if you want to then place Jerry Blackwell in control as the owner. Because as maybe you don't know, but in this game, when new promotions open, they're just blank for the owner and then blank for the booker. And then anybody with the business part for owner or booker will get randomly placed by the AI in control of the company. So what I tend to do in my saves is I make it as, again, I strive for realism. So here in January of 88 or whatever month it is, when Southern Championship Wrestling debuts, we're going to put Jerry Blackwell in charge of it. So back to this match here in Winnipeg in 1987. I don't care who wins this match. Jerry Blackwell's been winning just about all of them. We have seen Jack Victory take one or two, but we're going to leave this open-ended and let the computer decide who's going to take the match. Our next match on the card again is Slater versus Snuka. They're going to go 18 minutes. We are going to attempt to put Dick Slater over Jimmy Snuka by cheating. I know we had tried this before, and I think Jimmy Snuka bucked against it. But let's see, or that could have been a different wrestler. I don't recall. Let's see what happens. So Dick Slater, tainted win. Now, Dick Slater may not have been a big overall star as high as Snuka, but he was certainly a better worker in the ring than Snuka. And I doubt Snuka would have ever denied that. Okay, so Snuka took it like a man. He's going to do the JOB for Slater. That's good. And here's our big main event. this has become a lot of fun, this little feud, especially since we had the title change. And let's have them go 30 minutes here in Winnipeg. Let's let them tear down the house here in Winnipeg. So the Midnight Rockers now are challenging for the tag team title. And they are actually locked into a storyline feud in the game. So all this just continues to add more fuel to the fire and make things more and more fun. I keep forgetting to do it, and I can do this. So here's the Midnight Rockers. There's the Midnight Express plugged in. And of course, the Midnight Express are managed by Paulie Dangerously, aka Paul Heyman. So Dennis Condrey is going to go over. It's going to be an epic, and we're going to have a manager interference as the finish. So overall, now we have 3 screwy finishes for this card. This is an 8-bout card, so that's not too bad, and that's not going to be an issue with the crowd. And frankly, that's the way things were in the 80s. There was a lot of that going on. They didn't bring tables into the ring and put each other through tables without DQs. That's what they do nowadays, and that's a whole other conversation. But back then, there was a lot of outside interference and cheating and that kind of stuff that took place. So our card here is booked. We're going to go ahead and book this segment. So we got an issue now. This is probably a referee doing too much work. Okay, it's Larry Hennig. It's being used too much as the road agent. So we'll take him off a few matches here. Put Greg on there. Okay, we're all clear. We are good to go now. We're at 141 minutes for the card. So let's get rolling here and see what we can do. Combs and Micelli. Micelli gets the win. Excellent. Yeah, Combs had a rough go of it because of the injury. But hey, sometimes you got to roll through it, Debbie. Next, we got the Nasty Boys and the Top Guns. The Nasty Boys go over the Top Guns again. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time that they've gone over now. So we're going to have to make an adjustment for next time they meet. I was going to take a look, but there's no sense. Rolling right along. Eddie Guerrero beats Mike Graham in Winnipeg. Nice. Low rating, 43, but both these guys haven't had much exposure in Canada. But good. That's nice to see that they exchanged a win there. Bobby Duncan takes out Francis. Francis obviously has very low popularity in Winnipeg, whereas Duncan has decent popularity in Winnipeg. So that's the cause of our lower score overall with only a 55. But still, we're trying to rebuild a town in the territory that's been dead for a while. This is going to take a while to build back up and get these wrestlers exposure up there. Kevin Kelly and Peterson. Kevin Kelly takes out Peterson. Okay, nice. I think we've had the heels go over on this whole card so far. So that's one risk you take by letting the AI book it. The AI decide the winners. Blackwell gets the win over Victory. Very low score. Again, it's not due to mechanics or talent. It is due to popularity. Dick Slater, as we booked, cheats to beat Snuka. Not a bad score for Winnipeg, 64. And the main event gets an 80. That is a solid score for being in Winnipeg and just reopening up the town and starting to run up there again. So there it is. Paul E. Dangerously interferes. Now, if you watched wrestling back then you can only picture what Paul E. would have done. He probably would have hit him with the cell phone with the referee's back turned, or he would have held down an ankle while they were trying to pin him. He definitely would have done something heelish and evil and dastardly like that. But in this case, this feud is going very well. I couldn't be happier with the feud. The title change only makes things more interesting. the Rockers had a really good run with the tag title. They had a nice long seventh month reign in throughout 1987. So the change has been made. You never know. At the end of this feud, the Midnight Rockers could take the title back. But for right now, the Midnight Express are your reigning and defending World Tag Team Champions. And this has been an entertaining, fun card. Let's see if we get a bump for Winnipeg. And we do. We do. We got a 73 score overall. Bumps us up in Winnipeg. This is good. We just continue to improve here all over all these towns in our territory. As we've talked about before, the AWA was hurting. We came in here, we made some changes, and things seem to be going very well for us. So we're going to finish this show up. I don't feel any desire to do speeches. I don't think it's necessary. So it's going to bring us back to the home front here. I always get a kick out of how many English wrestlers and stuff they show on here. I don't even know who, unfortunately, probably about 90% of these English wrestlers are. But they did have their own unique style there, especially in the 80s. And sometimes I catch those 1980s English wrestling on YouTube, and it's a totally different style, and it's pretty entertaining. So we got some mail here. Let's see who's exhausted. Marty Jannetty is trash talking Russ Francis. Randy Rose is a little beat up. He is working for a couple other companies right now. He's actually working for 3 other companies. But hey, that's his problem. We're only asking him to work once a week for us. And I think he has given us the priority. And then the player leaves game. That's Jerry Jarrett left. I showed you how we had to do that in order to loan Jerry Lawler. So let's take a look around the game world here and see if there's anything exciting that catches our eye. WWF live event. Again, it's a less than type deal. So the Honky Tonk Man took Brutus Beefcake in the main event. And apparently, Tony Leone, however you want to pronounce it, is becoming a superstar in the WWF by getting an 85 match with the Junkyard Dog in a first blood match. Junkyard Dog and a jobber had a first blood match. That's good clean fun right there. Rick Rude defeats the Ultimate Warrior by countout. The Ultimate Warrior is losing a lot. Let's take a look at his match history here. He's got 7 wins and 9 losses. Wow. All in the WWF because he made that jump. Wow. Well, again, that's their problem, not ours. Nothing else too entertaining on that card for us to look at. Let's look at the NWA. Okay, so here, this one was set to normal event. That's why it picks up the pay-per-view buy rate. And again, this is a lesson learned. And I didn't realize when I set this that Crockett had a pay-per-view deal. I couldn't remember because, they didn't actually show an event on pay-per-view until Starrcade 87. And I didn't realize that I had already done the television contract, the broadcaster contract for them. So that's why you're seeing the pay-per-view buy rate. It's an error. We'll again, it's only in the save. It's not in the mod itself. So really no big deal. And this was a really good card they put on here in the Civic Center. Flair takes out Rogers. Wow, nice little card. Right there is the World Junior Heavyweight title that we were talking about. That's the title that Mike Graham held a couple times. They had some heavy hitters here on this card, including R. Candy Divine, who worked for them. So nice. This is some fun stuff and exciting stuff out here in the wrestling world. We can take a look at New Japan. It's pretty much all 6-man tags, of course. That's the way this thing is set up with tours. George Takano, who also wrestled as the Cobra, he was a hell of a talent. Some of my saves where I feature a lot of junior heavyweights, I always try to bring him in. I haven't done it for the AWA yet because I'm trying to keep it as close to real as possible. So that concludes our episode here, folks. Thanks again for joining me. This save continues to be fun. We're learning things. We're talking about history. I don't know about you, but I'm having a great time. So please give us a like, subscribe to this channel. We're going to continue putting out these videos. We're going to continue working this tour and having fun. And remember, if you'd like a copy of this mod, you can go to my website, www.braddrake.net/contact, fill out the form, let me know you'd like the mod. I'm more than happy to send you a link so you can download both the picture pack and the mod itself. Also, we have a Facebook group dedicated to the 1987 Supermod. You can find it at facebook.com/1987supermod, facebook.com/1987supermod, and we post when new videos are posted, we put them on there, and we also talk about the mod. So we're growing in numbers every day. Join us for some fun there, and just keep tuning in. We're going to keep pumping out these videos. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us. It's a pleasure having you.